So it's looking more and more likely like the US is going to get involved in a full-scale war with Iran. This is after the US killed somebody, assassinated somebody quite important in the Iranian regime, in the Iranian scheme of things. And the Iranians are, in my point of view, justifiably angry about that. Now, you can say what you like about the Iranian regime, the way that Iran is run, it's a dictatorship, it's this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump authorized this unprovoked attack. Bear in mind that there have been none, as far as I'm aware, no Iranian state-sanctioned attacks on American soil. There's been no sort of provocation for this. This is just Donald Trump has just decided he wants to kill this man, and he's gone and bombed him. And you can say what you like about the man himself. From what I hear, he was quite a his name escapes me, but he was quite an unsavoury character. You can say what you like about that, but this has not changed the fact that this beating of the war drum by America when it comes to Iran, it's not about democracy, it's not about peace, it's not about, being civilized. It's about spreading American influence and spreading America's view of how the world should be run and making that worldwide. It's what it's always been about. Ever since the end of the Second World War, it's all been about spreading American influence. And they like to preach, don't they, that they're all about democracy and all about people must choose their leaders. People must elect their own leaders. But they've proven that to be demonstrably false. Look at how they treated the Iraqis when they voted for Saddam. Look at how they treat the Palestinians every time they vote in Hamas. Again, you can say what you like about Hamas, you can say what you like about Hezbollah, but these parties are elected. And yes, they're violent, they're extremists, they're Islamist fundamentalists, and for that reason they are abhorrent parties, but they are voted for by the people in their respective countries. They are democratically elected, but because the US doesn't agree with these parties' policies and these parties' beliefs, they will actively try to overthrow these democratically elected bodies, these democratically elected governments. We've seen it in Venezuela as well. The Venezuelan people elected a president that wasn't going to cooperate with the US, doesn't like the US. And the Americans immediately started funding, arming, financing, whatever, rebel groups to overthrow this person. If you look back through American history, it is peppered with governments, democratically elected governments. But because the Americans don't like those governments, they get involved and they want to overthrow that government. And I know in this case, in the Iranian case, the government isn't democratically elected, so far as I'm aware. It's pretty much a dictatorship, yes, 100%. But nobody in Iran is asking America to get involved. I may be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody in Iran, just as nobody in Iraq was asking America, come and help us, come and get involved. They were minding their own business, sitting back. And yes, you have groups in Iran who are anti-West, who are anti-American, who are this, that and the other. But there was no provocation, there was no attack launched by the Iranians that was state-sanctioned on American soil and on Western soil in general. There was no need for it. And this war is not about, or this build-up to war, this beating of the war drum, it's not about being, all about democracy. It's not about being all about world peace. It's about America's influence and how they want to influence the entire world. I think the comedian Eddie Griffin put it perfectly when he said, I thought it was called the United States of America, not the United Empire of Earth. And I think that's a perfect way of putting it, because America is determined to influence the entire planet, and it has been since the end of the Second World War. Since 1945, they've attempted to overthrow well over 50 foreign governments. Well over 50. And they've caused many millions of people to be impoverished, to be destroyed, to be murdered, to live in a life of anguish. Many millions of people. And then you wonder why these people end up hating you. They end up hating the Americans, hating the West, hating the British, who usually tag along with what America wants to do. They hate you because your governments have gone along, they've sent your armed forces to these countries, who have then brutalized, destroyed, blown up homes, blown up mosques, hospitals, leveled entire towns and cities, all in the name of freedom, quote unquote, because nothing says freedom and democracy like sending a prince to shoot at some people from a helicopter, as Frankie Boyle said. You destroy these countries, you kill people, you butcher people, because I don't care how much people like to pretend, you cannot have a precision strike drone. It is not possible. You cannot drop a bomb and claim it was precision strike, surgical strike. No, it's not possible. It is not possible. It's about as precise as a surgeon using a fucking chainsaw for an operation instead of a scalpel. That's about as precise as it gets. It destroys everything around it, destroys whole areas, and there is nothing that will create a terrorist faster than to bomb the house of a man who did nothing to you. Bearing in mind that the people of a country usually have not much influence over what their governments do. So when people come here, when, Syrians, Iraqis, Afghanistanis, whatever they may be, whatever nationality they may be, or even homegrown Muslims are radicalized, and they're here, and they carry out a terrorist attack here, and they say it's in retaliation for what happens over there. Bear in mind that the same things are happening over there that are happening here. They've still got people who go into their countries and destroy innocent lives, murder innocent people. It's just a bit more sophisticated because it's lovely drones, drone bombings, carpet bombings. It's dropped out of planes. It's not some nutcase with a knife who wants to hack people to death. And as much as we can condemn the act of driving a car into a busy London road or hacking people to death with a machete, it's equally vile and equally abhorrent to fly a drone over an area which has schools and mosques and hospitals and level it because you think there may be a terrorist there. Bearing in mind the dictionary definition of terrorism is violent, destructive acts such as bombing committed by a group or government in order to intimidate a population or government into granting their demands. And if you look at that dictionary definition of terrorism, and if you look at what the US has been doing over the last 50, 60 years, what the UK has been doing over the last 50, 60 years, our governments are terrorists. The US, the UK, France, they are terrorists by definition, by very definition, because the amount of time we spend overseas getting involved in politics that aren't asked to get involved with. Yes, you can sit in Whitehall or in Washington and you can condemn the Iranian regime, you can condemn the Iraqi regime, the Venezuelan regime, whatever you want. But when you start deploying armed forces overseas and in other countries, within other countries, to actively meddle in politics that aren't asked to meddle in, you immediately become a terrorist because you end up destroying lives simply because you don't like the politics of a country. So you immediately become a terrorist. And this potential war in Iran, isn't about what they like to pretend it's about. It's not about defending democracy, defending freedom, because the Iranians have done nothing to us, bar a few naughty words, bar a bit slagging us off. They've not actually committed any terror attacks. And in fact, Donald Trump, I believe, implied that the Iranians were behind 9/11, when actually no, it was people funded by the Saudis that carried out 9/11. But of course, you don't want to criticise Saudi Arabia too much, because Saudi Arabia's got too much of this to offer. They can buy our guns. So it's about business. It's about politics. It's not about defending our country, defending our nation, defending our freedoms, because these are the typical tropes that are used. It's about their politics. They don't like their politics. Well, when we have citizens, normal, average, everyday citizens of Iran, when they are coming to us and they are asking us for help, then maybe we can get involved. then maybe we can say, right, why are your citizens coming to us and asking us to help? What is wrong with your country? What is going on in your country? And even then, you go through the appropriate channels. The UN, you go through the UN. You go through the international courts to figure out what's going on with this country, because Iran is in the UN. This is the bit that baffles me the most. The Iranian regime is a part of the UN. And the retaliations that we saw in response to this assassination, this drone assassination, was the Iranians launched attacks on 51 US bases in the region. And that is fully sanctioned under UN resolution. Article 51 of the UN resolution says that there must be no interference with any retaliation, self-defense retaliation, in the event of an unprovoked attack. That is what Trump's attack was. It was unprovoked. So all the bodies, any bodies that may occur due to Iranian retaliation, it's all on him. It's on his head, because the Iranians did nothing to him. There was no current terrorist attack that was their responsibility. Tripping over my tongue. There was no state-sanctioned violence on American soil. It was purely Trump's in that case, and he wants to drag us into a war. And of course, Boris Johnson is going to play the ever-loyal lapdog, and he's going to drag the Brits into war as well. I'll make no bones about it, because the UK government hasn't come out and said we will not justify any bombing whatsoever by the Americans. They have said we will not justify the bombing of cultural sites. So you can bomb what you want, but just be careful what you bomb. That's pretty much what they're saying. You can bomb people, you can murder people, you can assassinate leaders. Just be careful what you bomb. Whereas if 5 weeks ago or so, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we had elected the pacifist vegetarian socialist, and if he was in number 10 right now, we would be seeing a statement by Downing Street saying the UK will not cooperate with any American action in Iran. We will not justify any bombing whatsoever. And maybe 6 months down the line, some of our boys, some of our young boys in the armed forces wouldn't be going out to die in a war in a country that had nothing to do with them. But as it stands, we've chosen to elect Boris the idiot, and it looks like some of our young boys will be dying in an overseas war that is Trump's war, and that is the Iranians' war, not the British war, not the war of Britain. And we'll see where that goes from there. And we'll see if Boris loses any popularity, or if his cult of followers still wants to lavish praise on him after that. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.